If you can't study consistently, or you can only study when you're super motivated or when there's a deadline, then this video is exactly for you. Here are my specific tips to help someone like you who just wants to know where to start. And I know these techniques work because I used to be chronically procrastinating and rushing and cramming to meet deadlines or exams. If you don't know who I am, my name is Katkov. In 2024, I went from my lowest grade ever, a 37%, to the top 4% of all first-year psychology students at my university, while only studying 2 hours a day across all of my courses. So I feel like I have a pretty good perspective on what it's like to go from not being able to focus, not being able to study, chronically procrastinating, and not getting the grades to show my effort, to actually getting those results that people dream of getting. I am now going into my 4th year of university at U of T. So with that being said, let's rewind the clock a little bit. I ended up graduating high school in June of 2022. And for those of you who don't know my full story, I actually did very well in high school. I graduated with a 4.4 GPA. I took a 4-year biomedical sciences course that I think started with like 120 people and only 11 of us graduated. I had straight A's and honor rolls pretty much through all of high school. So naturally, I thought I had it all figured out, and I never thought to question my study method because I never actually had to. So fast forward to September 2022, when I entered my first year of university. I thought that I was going to do well. I expected to do well because I had always done well in high school. One of the issues was that the workload was much greater than I anticipated. I saw this theme of myself and a lot of other students working really, really hard, but they weren't able to work hard consistently. And then students, including myself, would beat ourselves up for not being able to work consistently, and then they would start associating those negative feelings with studying. So I started to develop this cognitive dissonance, which is essentially a fancy way of saying no longer identifying with something, between who I used to be in high school and then the grades that I was getting in university. And so it's one thing to go from being, bad to getting good grades, but it's so much worse going down the other way. I've done both, because going from the top to the bottom tells yourself that you no longer have control over the outcome. And to put a label on it, it's called learned helplessness, and it causes a lot of people to spiral into depression, which is kind of what happened for me. After my first semester in university, I decided that something needed to change. So I decided, okay, no more going out, no more weekends, no more partying. We're just gonna absolutely lock in and grind. And this is the natural response, but it actually is the very thing that causes you to not be able to lock in. The younger me was so arrogant because he thought he could just outwork his problems and that the rules didn't apply to him. And don't get me wrong, I could work hard. I spent almost 8 hours a day in the library, but the frustrating thing was that no matter how much more I worked, no matter how many more hours I put in, it never reflected in my grades. And sometimes, in fact, they actually got worse. Not only was I putting in more effort for the same results, but sometimes I was even putting in more effort for lesser results, which is about as frustrating as it gets. But don't worry, because I'm about to give you the solution to all of this. In 2024, as I mentioned, I hit my all-time lowest grade, a 37%. And it was at this point that I realized that literally every single thing that I was trying was not working. So it was at this point I basically just said, you know what, screw it, like nothing I'm doing is working, I might as well completely try something new. And if you were anything like where I was at this place, you know that you just want to know that the work that you're putting in is paying off. The first place that procrastination manifests itself is in starting something. And this occurs because your brain doesn't know how long the task is going to take. And if you think about it from a survival mechanism standpoint, then this makes complete sense. If you were to go hunt for food, if you used up all of your energy and then a bear ended up attacking you, you'd probably just die. It wants to save some energy in reserve to make sure that you have enough energy to try to escape. And so your fear here is actually in the unknown, because your brain is telling you, I don't know if I'm going to be able to survive this. And this was backed up by most of my friends who wouldn't even look at the assignments until like a couple days before the due date. And so the solution here is actually quite simple, but it is the scariest one, and it's that you have to look at the assignment. I like to break this up completely separate from everything else, because it makes it easier for me to look at it. And so I'm just going to say, like, the day that I get an assignment, I'm just going to be like, all right, I'm going to look at it, but I'm not actually going to do it because it's too much for me. I can't get myself to look at something, understand what to do, and then do it all in the same time frame. But this doesn't solve the second reason why procrastination manifests itself, because in my experience, the difficulty of the task can actually cause you to be less motivated. And so when you know what the task is and how difficult it's going to be, you might be more reluctant and procrastinate even more on completing the task. And this actually usually stems from a lack of self-confidence, either in your confidence in your ability to complete the task, or your confidence in the grade or report or whatever it is, the feedback that you're going to get from completing the task, and you're worried that it's going to be negative. And so the solution that I have for this one is that you need to break the assignment or task down into much smaller parts. And not only will this make the daunting task, more structured, and you'll know what to do and when to do it, but your brain also won't be telling you that it's going to take too much energy. Because if you break it down into something as simple as, okay, I'm just going to walk up to my computer, right? And then I'm just going to open my computer. And then I'm just going to write my name and my student number. And then I'm just going to make the title, right? These are all they're almost childishly easy things to do, but that is what starting is. All of those little things seem almost too easy. And so it's why would you not do that? I can walk up to my computer anytime. I can open my computer anytime. But in doing this, it also allows you to track the task. It's not okay, I'm just going to work on the assignment until it's done, because you don't know how long it's going to take. It's very demotivating to just say, I've been working on this assignment for so long and it's not done. It's much easier to say, okay, I've been working on this assignment for this long and I'm 60% done or 70% done. And so you can actually quantify how much of it you have done because you've broken it up into smaller tasks. After I found these two solutions, I actually thought that I had figured it all out. And so I went to talk to all my friends and I told them, look, this is what I'm doing if you want to stop procrastinating. They were all like, that's great. I checked back with them, later in the semester, and every single one of them had starting their assignments earlier. And so I figured, okay, job well done, right? But then I realized that it actually wasn't that much earlier. They only started maybe a few days earlier. That is a big difference, going from 2 days to 4 days. It is 100% increase, but it wasn't the results that I personally was looking for. I wanted to go from maybe 3 days to 2 weeks in advance. I wanted to have a lot of time to work on something, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it that far in advance. And so I realized that there was one thing missing. This brings me to the third reason why procrastination manifests itself. Solving this problem is going to allow you to study or start preparing for whatever it is that you're doing pretty much as far in advance as you want to. And so in adding this third solution to the problem, I found that there was a huge increase, and I did end up getting those 2 weeks in advance. I could pretty much start as soon as something was assigned. And so the problem here is a lack of perceived importance. When you have a due date or a test coming up, whatever task it is you're doing or whatever it is you're studying, that shoots up in importance because you're oh man, I might fail this test. You're actually not doing it to succeed, but you're doing it to avoid failing. And that is much more important. Humans are much more motivated by avoiding the loss of something than gaining something. If I were to say sweep the floor for $5, right? You're okay, I don't really want to do that, but maybe I'll do it because it's $5. But if I was I'm going to take $5 away from you if you don't sweep the floor, you're oh, okay, fine, I'll sweep the floor, right? It's it's way more motivating to avoid losing something. And so the way to get around the lack of perceived importance problem is in the last step, how we broke things up into little chunks. You just assign those chunks arbitrary deadlines. And this is going to allow you to have way more deadlines to meet and way more importances, right? So that things seem more important further out from the actual due date. If you were to take something, break it up into 10 steps, and then you had every 2 days, I need to finish one of those things, it's going to be done in 20 days. But you only have to do a little bit each day. Not only does it make it less daunting, but it also means that you're going to be staying on track, you're going to be able to measure it, and it's going to be more important for those days that are much further out from the deadline. To make sure that this third step was actually the solution to solving procrastination, I told it to all my friends. To make a long story short, we all pretty much start assignments the second that they're due. Sometimes we even look at the syllabus when we first join a course, and we'll start the assignment or whatever we can do, brainstorming for it ahead of time so that, we can mentally prime ourselves to fit things in from the semester as we go along. And this is probably the result that all of you dream of, because I promise you it makes it a million times easier to do any assignment in university. So everything I just laid out for you are ways to overcome the procrastination hurdle. And the point of the story is the process of solving the problem, not just the solution in it. Because I want you guys to really appreciate the fact that you can actually take what I did in addressing the specific problems of an obstacle and apply it to pretty much anything in your life. It's not just centered around procrastination, but you can really do this for anything and solving any problem is possible. What if we're gonna get real for a second? The only way to actually get your assignment done is to actually just do it. So with that, I will leave you. Thank you, Cheerless Tribe. Keep being awesome. If you're new to the Cheerless Tribe, welcome. We love you. Stay in school because it's about to get a whole lot easier if you subscribe to my channel. We make these videos because there are a ton of stressed students out there, and we don't want you to be one of them. Once again, my name is Katkov. I'm the founder of UofTearless. Subscribe for more content to make your life and school suck less, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.